how we've been talking about creating a display of memorabilia, of flyers, photos, past kings and queens, all that kind of stuff. Yep. She bounced it off Jared, and he said he'd be open to it. So, but on the other hand, that's kind of our center for historical stuff anyway.
And people are history buffs; they're going to go there anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Makes sense.
For me, Madison County is home. It's everything I want in terms of a community and a place to live full of things to do for all ages. Wonderful place to raise my family.
I would describe Madison County as a community. I think the people who live here have a real interest and a real love of making a community out of the space. So it's not just people who live here, but it's people who work together, people who lift each other up, and who want to make this the best community that they can, because it is special, and I think everybody who lives here realizes that.
Madison County is a growing and vibrant place to live with a lot to offer. And if you've been here, you know that. You can see the growth that's been happening, and if you haven't been here for a while, you may not realize that. But we've got a lot of really cool things in our community.
Beautiful rolling hills, a lot of good flat farm ground, a lot of nice timber. We got it all.
The people that live here have always been like family, willing to help whenever they can with whatever they can. Just a pleasant place to live.
We came here right after graduated from college, 1959. Had a job at Montrose Pharmacy as a pharmacist, of course.
And this was his first position he interviewed for, got the job, so we moved here.
Worked there and worked the hospital, and was involved in several community organizations and things through the years.
He wanted to live in a town that he could know his patients and have a personal relationship with them, and this was the perfect size. I think it was around 4,000 population back then.
I consider myself a Madison County native. My family goes back 6 or 7 generations on my mom's side. So I went Winterset schools from 5th grade through 12th grade, graduated from Winterset High School.
So I lived in Winterset and in Madison County my whole life until I went to college. I grew up first living out on a country road, and then when I was around 6, we moved right into town, so we're right off of the square. I graduated from Winterset High School in the year 2000, and then I'm involved with Madison County again because in 2015 my mother and I acquired this beautiful theater and spent 2 years rehabilitating it and raising the funds to reopen it in 2017, which we did.
Well, I've lived here most of my life. We moved here when I was 10 years old, and my parents opened a jewelry store. And I graduated from high school here, and then after starting a career elsewhere, we were gone about 15 years and came back and bought the Ben Franklin store, and so we've been here ever since.
I arrived in Madison County at my early 20s, and by about age 25 I was taking a quilting class at the county extension office. A bunch of us gals took the quilting class, we started quilting, we were so passionate about it, and the next thing you knew, we wanted to have a quilt show. And when we want to have a quilt show? Of course, during Covered Bridge Festival when 40,000 people are on the town square.
Well, there was a group of people that thought we could showcase the history of our covered bridges. Jim and Pat Nelson, Willard Short, Hank Stuchel, and Bob Christensen.
My understanding is a handful of people were having coffee and decided this ought to happen. There ought to be some sort of a testament or a yearly celebration of our covered bridges and our history and our heritage. And here we are 50 years later, still celebrating our covered bridges and our history and our heritage. And so my hat's off to those people who made that happen 50 years ago.
The rich heritage of the covered bridges is something they wanted to build on. We have these wonderful treasures here in our county from the 1880s. They're just kind of remarkable that it's still there, and I know they wanted to promote that fact and just some of the heritage of the pioneer spirit that goes back even farther than that.
All the first committee members were Kiwanis members. That was an era in the mid-60s where the farmers were getting pretty upset with these narrow bridges. There was, people saying, maybe we ought to just tear them down and replace them, and this discussion went on, and we thought maybe a better thing to do would be do something to celebrate the bridges. Had connection with Leslie Swanson, who was a bridge buff from Bettendorf area, and he was very encouraging about how to put a festival together.
Leslie Swanson was really the impetus, and when I learned about what he had told Jim and the Kiwanis, I said, the nostalgia festival for the bridges would be just an ideal idea, and I had to talk quite a bit to get him sold on it, but they did all the work. I just provided an idea to spark it. And
we tried to celebrate the whole area of the 1880s. We still have some of those elements of that 1880 celebration and celebrating the bridges, and that's an important thing. Well, the first year was a one-day event, and we had bridges that were pretty much fallen down, like Cutler Donahoe down by Bevington was about ready to fall in a creek. This is where the coin idea came from, was we would mint a coin, pay to move the bridge into City Park, which we did, and it was very successful in doing that. Madison
County kept their covered bridges far longer than any of the other counties in Iowa. The other counties went to the iron bridges right as soon as they came out. And we hung back, and I'm so glad that we did, because now we have that legacy to show to other people when they come to visit. It used to be a Grace's Cafe down on the corner, down here, on the corner of Court and John Wayne Drive. And it was a little restaurant. And our committee we'd go out in the morning and put up signs all around town. Different. What time? 5 o'clock or so, yeah, early. So then we get together and have breakfast at Grace's. All our committee meetings, we had Jeanette Clark was our secretary, who's passed away now, but she was also the chamber secretary. We didn't have any money, of course, so we went to the chamber board to borrow $500 and to buy the first batch of coins. And a couple of the board members said, well, let's give them the $500 and they'll pay us back anyway. We'll just give them the money. And which they weren't too optimistic about what we were doing, but probably a month after we got the coins, we paid them back, and they were quite shocked. We sold probably 7,500 coins that first year, and then we'd auction them off, and we gave all the proceeds then to the museum, which the museum was not on the hill then. They were trying to develop a museum out south of town, but it was still up in the courthouse, so they were trying to raise money for that. Each booth, which they had to be a resident of Madison County to have a booth, they had to dress in period clothing, and whatever they made or sold, they had to demonstrate how they did it. So it was kind of complicated, but there was 85 men and women's groups
organizations in Madison County, and they pretty much all participated one way or another. We asked them then that if they made a profit, they would give the festival back 10% of that profit. And we kept enough to develop next year's festival and gave the rest to the museum each year. So that's kind of how that worked for the first, I'd say first 15 years.
In the first years, I don't know when it was, but Jim and the committee went to Park County, Illinois. Indiana? Park County? Indiana. Yeah, Park County, Indiana. They had a full week of festival, and they had things going on at most of the covered bridges. So they went to see how they put on a festival, and they brought back quite a few good ideas. Yeah, some would work, some didn't. They had a scarecrow contest, and everyone around the county concoct some sort of a scarecrow. And some of them were so clever that they got stolen. So they decided, well, you know, people don't like to have their artwork stolen. So that didn't last very many years.
We had 2 or 3 years of scarecrows at every bridge. We had a lot of fun with some of the things from the book and the movie, you know, with that. Pat developed a dessert called Francesca's Regret. And we'd have people come in the store that they thought the story was a true story. And they were really disappointed when they found out that it really wasn't.
So the members of John Wayne's family first came back here during the Covered Bridge Festival. It seemed like a nice time to showcase the county, and his oldest son, Michael Wayne, came back in 1982. And then one of his daughters, Melinda, came back a few years after that. So we were able to have them in the parade and introduce them to people around, and so that was a nice connection with John Wayne, which is another part of our history here.
The festival has evolved, so it's clearly it doesn't look the way it did in 1970, but I think that's okay, because what does look like it did in 1970, and I think adding fresh things every year and trying to adapt to changing interests and changing palettes for festivals and outdoor celebrations is important. I think that's what we must do to keep the festival fresh and interesting. Certainly people who come here year after year who aren't from Madison County look forward to what's new every year, and it keeps it exciting for the committee to be chasing down new things.
My mom had 3 kids, and she was a single mom. And she, at the beginning, like on Thursday night or whatever, she would give each of us an envelope with like $20 in it. She'd be like, this is all I'm giving you. Like, don't ask me for any more money. Like, here's your $20. This is yours. This is your money. Like, budget it. And then I would feel like I was like, I have so much money. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like the world is my oyster. And then I would, you know, of course, run out of money like the very first day.
I remember performing on the square singing. Meredith Easter used to have her students performing on the south side courthouse steps, and so I can remember Mel Penrod announcing and me going out there and singing duets and making a fool of myself.
There was another dime store on the same side of the square as Ben Franklin, Harrison's, and upstairs was a ballet studio or a dance studio. So we rented that space, we borrowed quilts from all over town, we put them over the ballet bars, we hauled antique furniture up there, and we charged $1 to come to the quilt show. And I think 1,000 people came to the quilt show. So when all was said and done, you know, we had $1,000 and we had kind of a club, and we continued to have a quilt show every year during Covered Bridge Days, and there's still a quilt show going on today.
Little things like volunteering, like feeling really special to volunteer at any of the gates and like stamping people's hands, and I've always felt a real like ownership in the Bridge Festival, like because people would come in from out of town. You know, you live in a small community, you feel like you know everybody. So it'd be this weekend where I'd be like, I don't know them and I don't know them, but like I live here, like this is my town, and they're here, and it was something really to be proud of.
Well, I like the booths around the square. I don't get to be away from here very much, so that is where I focus my attention, I guess. And the parade is always a favorite of mine.
I like the luck bands. I like to see what he brings every year. And to me, that's someone who's been here since the festival started, brings fresh stuff, but yet is an important part of the celebration that would certainly be missed if he wasn't here. And I enjoyed going when my children were little to pick out new pieces and watch him do his work. So I think that's fun that that's still here. I love the spelling bee. I had all my children's as entrants in the spelling bee.
I am one to just really enjoy the arts and crafts booths that are up on the square. If nothing else, on a Covered Bridge Festival weekend, I usually walk up through the leaves and just make my way around the square a couple of times to see what's new and what's in the booths. I never miss the pork producers booth. And even though you can get a pork sandwich from the Madison County pork producers at other times of year, there's just something about eating it in October on the square during Covered Bridge Festival that tastes the best. The kettle corn, I never miss the kettle corn. And I always like to try to make it out to the quilt exhibit at the elementary school. I think the Covered Bridge quilters do a great show out there, and that's always something I like to see.
That first year when our quilt show was right on the town square, we just didn't anticipate so many people would come to the show. And we had written a program booklet describing each quilt. Each quilt was numbered, and quilt shows were really unusual those days. There weren't very many around, so we had to make up everything that we do. And so we had printed a bunch of these programs. I don't remember how many. They were mimeographed. We used the church mimeograph machine. And so many people came to the quilt show on Saturday that Sunday morning I was at the church in my costume printing out more booklets that we stapled and got together so that we could have them ready for our crowd on Sunday. And so many local people came to the quilt show and signed our registration book. So many of them said they would like to learn to quilt. That's really what got me started teaching quilting classes here in Winterset.
The owner of a variety store here, the Ben Franklin store, it's a very important weekend for us. Probably the biggest day we ever had was we came up with a new design of a sweatshirt to commemorate the 25th anniversary. And that proved to be so popular. I had a guy printing them in Des Moines that was printing them so fast when he brought a new load down here, they were still warm from being in the dryer trying to dry the ink on them, and we were selling them about as fast as we could get them in.
I also remember we live so close to the square. We're like the first house on the west side of the square. And so we had to, like, on Thursday night also, Thursday, Friday, we had to like rope off our driveway because all of these cars would come into town, and it was sort of like we had to like batten down the hatches a little bit because we were like, all these people are coming, they're all gonna wanna park in our lawn or our driveway, so we always had to like rope it off.
Carver Park, I guess, would be my favorite part. These last 10 years or so since I was not involved with the festival total, I kind of take care of Carver Park, grow peanuts and cotton so people can see what cotton looks like when it grows and see what a cotton boll is, and we make homemade peanut butter. And I think it's a great display and a great piece of history, really. Carver was an amazing man.
I also like to watch the spelling bee every year. I used to teach, and so I would have students in that. My daughter has competed in it. I think it's always fun, and I just always love to see the Bench family in whatever form, however many of them are able to make it. I always love to see the Bench family perform when they come.
I love just that the whole square is taken over by this festival, and like I just remember as a kid when they would put up the barricades, it was just like really exciting because we get to walk in the street, like that was just a very cool thing as a little kid. So I love that it really takes over the whole community, and that like either you're involved or someone who's involved or you're going, like it touches everybody in one way or the other.
I think one of my favorite parts of the festival is the royalty. Every year, one of the communities in Madison County get to choose one of their senior citizens or a couple from that community to be the king and queen of the festival. And I just think it's so neat that we use the elderly king and queen because it is a nostalgia festival. These people who are chosen as royalty have given to their communities in service for many, many years over their lifetime. And it's just another way of recognizing and thanking those people who have been here for a long time and committed their service to their community.
Some of my best memories are eating all of the different, hopping to all the different booths and eating all the great food. And then I just love how much people get into it. And I was like that when I was little. I would dress up in the sort of prairie or pioneering outfits. And I love to see the cowboys and the women dressed up and the kids dressed up and the kids running around and the face paint, just everything. Everyone's really, really into it and they're as excited as I am. So I just love that community. Everybody has a shared purpose for one weekend, and it's to have a really, really good time, and that's awesome.
I think the entertainment is fun. We always love live music on city streets and enjoy kind of that atmosphere of festival and being alive and live music. I think that's part of any outdoor event. So it's always fun to see who our committee members come up with in terms of fresh entertainers.
I definitely try to attend the parade every year, for sure, because it is so fun. And because it's at the end, there's a real feeling of we did it. And now that I am seeing the more business side of it and being involved in the Chamber of Commerce, I can feel the joy, all the people that have been working so hard. I can see how hard the Chamber and the volunteers, I can see how hard they've worked to set it up. It's such a big event. So the parade is a nice way for them also to feel sort of we did it. So I like the parade because it's a celebration.
I usually try and see the king and queen coronation thing. I like to miss that. I like to watch on Saturday night. The high school chorus usually sings on the courthouse steps.
I mean, what's really fun now growing up is I have friends who have kids who are performing, and that's really cool. I remember as a kid, being in the choir or the high school, we would do something, we would do a little preview of the spring or the fall play or fall musical. The performances in the parade are probably my top choices.
Partially at this point, it's a historic, it's something that we look forward to because of its history. But I also think it's good for us to continue to promote our covered bridges and the historic structures that they are, and there's remain an enormous tourist attraction. And so if people come in and visit those, then they're also visiting our local businesses and just enjoying and seeing what else the county has to offer, which is an awful lot. It's something I look forward to every year. I just think it brings a lot of good notoriety to the community.
The entire week and week after, before and after the festival, are busy for us because some people like to come during that time of year, don't necessarily want to come during the festival itself because of the crowds, and so it makes for a very busy October. I'm proud of our county. We like to showcase it, and we have a lot to offer here because of different aspects of our history, which would include the covered bridges, John Wayne, and the Quilt Museum, and just the scenic beauty of one of the best courthouses in the state.
I do think the Covered Bridges, the Covered Bridge Festival is part of our brand in Madison County. I mean, I would say if I tell someone I'm from Winterset and they kind of give me one of these looks and I say, it's in Madison County, oh, Madison County, then they make that connection to Covered Bridges. So in that respect, it is relevant, it is important that we maintain those structures, maintain that tie to our past. I think it's important for all of us as humans to know our history and appreciate our history and understand our history. I think that's especially important here where so much has happened. We have a great story to tell, and Covered Bridges are a big part of that story.
I think it's great to keep the story alive, the story of the bridges primarily, and mean, I don't think we ever want to forget that's why we're having a festival, is because of the bridges and how we're going to celebrate them and keep them all in good shape and looking good. And it's a way of inviting the world almost to Madison County to see what a wonderful place we have.
I think Bridge Festival is important because it is such a community-driven thing. I mean, we don't have to do it. I mean, we don't. I think all the businesses and all the residents really love it and benefit from it, but like, no one's making us do it. And so it is important because it shows that volunteers, people who care, people who are really passionate about this community, reflection of all that hard work and all of that passion. But I think it's also special in that it's not a requirement. Like, we do it because we love it, and that's really special.
I went to a tourism conference, and one thing that they said to me just stuck with me. And they said, your festivals need to be authentic because the public will know whether it's authentic or fake. And if it's fake, they won't come back. So I think it's important that we continue to celebrate our covered bridges and do it in keeping with the theme of the festival. We've had hide tanning and rope making and barbed wire, cornhusk dolls, and all those wonderful old ways of doing things that our children and grandchildren have never seen before. And that's just one way of keeping our history alive.
I think the Bridge Festival is important to me now. If I put my Iowa theater hat on, I think it's important because it reminds me again and again that Winterset and Madison County are very vibrant communities and a very vibrant county. The theater shuttered, and I didn't have any ties to it beyond having gone here a lot as a kid, but I really felt that Winterset and Madison County are vibrant, and I wouldn't have taken my time and left my job in Chicago to do this huge project if I didn't feel like it was worthwhile. If I didn't feel like this place is here to stay, this community is thriving. So it's cool to be reminded every October, oh yeah, this is a tourist destination, and it's also a place where people love to live. And so it's good that the theater reopened, and it's good that we've invested time and energy into this project because Madison County is on the map in a serious way.
Had such good relationships, and so many people have volunteered to work with the festival over these 50 years, really. And that's why it's important to me and to a lot of people, is that it brings us together.
I hope they remember that it was a friendly place to visit and that they can't wait to come back, because when the festival's going on, there's a lot of people around and you can't always enjoy everything. So I'd like to think that when they leave, they try to think of a time when they can come back when things are a little quieter and they can enjoy more of what we have to offer here.
Well, of course, quilt shows are common all around the United States because, after the bicentennial and so many people learned to quilt, quilt shows became more available. So our quilt show here in Madison County wasn't as unique as it was in the first years. But with the idea that the Covered Bridge Festival is a celebration of our heritage and our crafts and kind of the authenticity of our community, I'm really proud of the fact that there's still a quilt show today put on by the Covered Bridge Quilters, which is the local quilting group right here in Madison County.
I think they'll leave with a good impression because they'll have met a lot of local people that were very friendly and showed them a good time. So I think they'll enjoy our scenery and stuff just like we do.
And we're so blessed, I think, with the people who have been here. Carver, George Stout, the Wallace family, John Wayne, the Bridges, friendly people, Pamela Park. It goes on and on and on. They come thinking they're going to spend a couple of hours, and they said, we need another day. They can't see it all and do everything in just one day. So they leave planning to come back.
We've got a wonderful group of volunteers right now It's important to listen to feedback from the community and listen to what other festivals are doing in terms of new things to feature. We now have added a 3D chalk artist who's fantastic, and I enjoy having her year after year. That's something that maybe is going to serve its time too, and we'll have to move on to something else that's fresh and interesting. So I think we need to listen to feedback, listen to our volunteers, listen to what our local citizens say, and then listen to what our guests say in terms of why they come and what keeps them coming, and make sure we continue to chase those things down. But it's a wonderful festival, and this community is at its peak of beauty, in my opinion. The second full weekend in October, it's when we just roll out the red carpet for thousands of people who want to come here and be Madison County citizens for the day too. This community is full of really big thinkers. So I love living in a place where people dream really big and think really big and put in the work to make things happen.
Sinner like a door now, set the beat, come alive now. I wanna stop, change the course now, drop the line now, drop the ceiling and then raise it. I've been dreaming of a light now. Everyone inside and waiting.